Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to start my bio on Michael Jackson. Earlier this year, I did a video on New Edition because they're my favorite group of all time, so it's only right that I cover my favorite solo artist and entertainer of all time, Michael Jackson. If you know music, you should already know the impact Michael has had on the industry, so without further ado, this is the portrait of Michael Jackson. Before I begin, I ask you to do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000, so your help is needed. And now to our feature presentation. Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29, 1958, a Virgo like myself, in Gary, Indiana. His father, Joseph Joe Jackson, worked for the Gary, Indiana Steel Mill Company, while his mother worked part-time at Sears. Michael was the 8th of 10 children. His siblings included Maureen Jackson, we all know her as Rebe, Sigmund Esco Jackson, we know him as Jackie, Toriano Jackson, we know him as Tito, Jermaine Jackson, Latoya Jackson, Marlon and his twin brother Brandon, but Brandon did not survive his birth. 2 more siblings came after him, and they were Stephen Randall Jackson, we know him as Randy, and the youngest, Janet Jackson. The Jackson family grew up poor and not having much. They didn't even own a TV at the time, so how did the family entertain themselves? By music. Joe played guitar in a local blues band, and those traits carried to his sons. While Joe would be at work, the children would play his guitar, with Tito being the most skilled. Catherine never told him that the kids were playing the guitar, until one day he noticed that one of the strings broke, and after finding out that Tito was the one playing, he disciplined him. After getting done with Tito and fixing the string, Joseph demanded Tito to play for him. As tears was flowing, Tito began to play, and Joseph was impressed. The next day, he bought another guitar for Tito and convinced that his brother, Jackie and Jermaine, form a group called the Jackson Brothers. Michael wanted to join the group, but he couldn't because of age. Michael wanted to sing so bad. At a school recital, he sang "Climb Every Mountain." After the recital, Joe allowed Michael to join the group, and not wanting to be left out, Marlon joined as well. And by that time, Joe bought Jermaine a bass guitar. The brothers officially branded themselves as the Jackson 5.
One day, like a year or two later, we hear Michael singing a little thing in kindergarten, singing "Climb Every Mountain" in the school performance. And he tore it up, man. We couldn't believe, our mouths flew open, couldn't believe that was our brother up there singing. We rush him home, tell him he's in the group. Marlon said, "Me too?" Say, "Yeah, you too, come on." So that's how the Jackson Brothers were formed. We did a wedding, and the lady said to us, "What is your name?" And we said, "Well, we really don't have a name. We're going by Jackson Brothers because we're brothers." She said, no, you should use Jackson 5 because there's 5 of you. And
they began to perform in local talent shows, malls, weddings, and even strip joints, and they became local hits. But back home, the joy of performing was beginning to weigh down on the boys emotionally, especially now lead singer Michael Jackson. Joseph is described as a strict disciplinarian, and for those times carried out punishment for the little things to keep his children out of trouble. In rehearsals, he demanded perfection. The kids will recall that Joseph would sit on the couch with belt in his hand, waiting for the next slip up. He would verbally abuse the boys, none harder than Michael. And it's part of the reason why Michael Jackson describes his childhood as quiet and lonely. Over time, the boys would perfect their craft and continue winning talent shows, to the point where they landed their first record deal with Steeltown Records of Gary, Indiana. The group recorded 2 songs, one of which being Big Boy. Big boy now, that's looking for. One day, the boys got to participate on amateur night at the Apollo, and the Apollo has been known for having the most hostile audience. It's either be good or be gone. But the Jacksons prevailed and won amateur night. It was claimed that Gladys Knight sent a tape of them to her boss at the time, Berry Gordy of Motown, as she hoped this could get the boys signed onto their roster. But Berry Gordy rejected the tape. Then, after opening for Bobby Taylor in the Vancouvers, he was able to bring the boys to Detroit to audition for Motown. Gordy, who was in LA, saw the tape and again he rejected them. this time stating that he didn't want any kid acts besides Stevie Wonder. Then, after giving it some thoughts, he decided to take a chance on the Jacksons. After long negotiations, which included getting the boys out of Steeltown, the Jackson 5 were officially signed to Motown Records. Berry Gordy will also have the boys move from Gary to Los Angeles, as Gordy was starting his early plans to move his label to LA. The Jacksons made their television debut on the Miss Black America pageant as they performed the Isley Brother classic, It's Your Thing. They made their primetime debut appearance on the Hollywood Palace as Diana Ross introduced them as Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5. There, they performed their first single, I Want You Back. As 1970 turned, the song went number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. They followed up with their next single, ABC, which knocked the Beatles out of number 1. The Love You Save and I'll Be There also topped the charts. The Jackson 5 quickly became Motown's marketing focus as they made a number of TV appearances while with Motown. In 1971, Rankin Bass Productions made a cartoon show involving the Jacksons. With massive growing momentum, Motown decided to do a Michael Jackson solo album with his brothers on background. The result was Got to Be There. The next year, Michael got an opportunity to record a song for the movie Ben. The song became Michael Jackson's first number 1 as a solo artist. He also became one of the youngest to perform at the Oscars. In 1974, the Jacksons recorded a hit song called Dancing Machine, and on an appearance on Soul Train, he invented a dance called The Robot. But 1975 would prove to be a challenge for the Jackson family. Their contracts with Motown were expiring and they had the option to renew. But Joe felt like the boys weren't given creative control, so once their contracts with Motown had ended, the boys inked a higher paying deal with Epic. Not part of the deal was brother Jermaine. He felt super loyal to Motown, and the fact that he was married to Berry Gordy's daughter at the time, he didn't want to leave. Younger brother Randy, who's been touring with the brother as a conga player, was promoted to the lineup. What also stayed at Motown was the name Jackson 5, since Motown owned the rights of the name. The family could have challenged that, but they chose not to. Instead, they rebranded themselves as the Jacksons. Now on Epic, the brothers got some creative freedom they wanted. Jackie and Michael served as the main songwriters on their first record for Epic, Enjoy Yourself. Enjoy yourself with me. Let's have some fun. Their first 2 albums for Epic, called The Jacksons and Going Places, however, tanked. It didn't really matter because they still found opportunities. CBS gave them a deal to star on their own variety show. The show would not only feature the brothers, but got the sisters Rebe, LaToya, and Janet in the act. The series only ran for 12 episodes, and according to Michael, he hated the project and regrets ever doing it. And I believe that this will be the start of Michael seeking his personal independence. In 1977, Michael Jackson moved to New York because he was casted to do The Wiz as Scarecrow. The film was produced by Motown and features some of the greatest in black cinema: Diana Ross, Nipsey Russell, Ted Ross, Richard Pryor, and Lena Horne, to name a few. Although the film was a failure in the box office, it will later be considered a cult classic. It will also be here that he would meet Quincy Jones. During filming, Jackson approached Jones to help him work on his first solo album since 1975. Jones was reluctant at first, but eventually agreed to help. But first, the Jacksons released Destiny in 1978. The album will be the first to be written and produced exclusively by the Jacksons, with Blame It on the Boogie being the lone exception. The album featured its biggest single on Epic, Shake Your Body Down to the Ground, which was written by Michael and Randy. Shake your body down to the ground, let's dance, let's shout. Shake your body. While prepping for his Off the Wall release, he suffered a broken nose during a dancing accident. A rhinoplasty led to breathing difficulties that later affected his career. Thus, he would later have plastic surgery multiple times to help his breathing and hitting high notes. So no, His nose did not fall off, nor did he have a replaceable nose. After recovering from his nose injury, he continued to work on Off the Wall. Michael wanted the album not to sound like a Jackson record. He wanted to explore other genres like disco, funk, and the early sounds of hip-hop. It was said while in New York, he went to nightclubs that played some of those early hip-hop hits. And that influenced the song Working Day and Night. The album also worked with songwriters like Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney, to name a few. Off the Wall was released on August 1979. Songs released were the #1 hits Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You.
Don't stop till you get enough. Keep on with the full stop. Rock with you all night.
Other songs included Off the Wall and She's Out of My Life. The album was massively successful, going 9 times platinum.
She's out of my life.
Back with the Jacksons, rumors of Michael leaving the Jacksons were surfacing because of the success of Off the Wall. But Michael stayed and did the Triumph album. Released in 1980, it proved to be just as successful thanks to the singles Lovely One,
You are my lovely one. You are my.
Heartbreak Hotel, and the cult classic Can You Feel It? A live album for their Triumph tour was released in 1981. Now here's a little fun fact. Michael Jackson was supposed to team up with Freddie Mercury of Queen to record a duet album. However, things went south due to a sour relationship between the two. Mercury didn't like the fact that Michael brought a llama to the studio, and Jackson didn't like Mercury's drug abuse. The songs recorded were later released in 2014. Some of the songs they recorded will be featured on the Jacksons' Victory album. Despite this setback, Michael decided to shift his focus on his next album, an album many people will claim to be the greatest of all time. In 1982, Jackson began recording for his next album. Quincy Jones returned to help out with production, but their relationship this time was strained. Jackson would spend more time rehearsing his choreography for his singles, while Jones wasn't pleased at the final product of those singles. Examples: the two disagreed on the intro to Billie Jean. Michael wanted the long intro so he could make room for his dancing, but Jones didn't like it because it would drag the song. Jackson and Jones would record about 30 songs for the album, but 9 just made the cut. Also assisting from the album were members from Toto, Eddie Van Halen, and Paul McCartney again returned to assist. Jackson would eventually call this album Thriller. After recording the song, he and songwriter Rob Tipperton felt like the name had market value. Thriller was released on November 30th, 1982. For his first single, they used The Girl Is Mine, a duet with Paul McCartney. Although this will become a hit, critics bashed it as a poor choice for a lead single. They felt like Michael Jackson was selling out. His next single, Billie Jean, will eventually change the landscape of pop music. The song was very personal for Michael Jackson, as it talked about how he dealt with obsessed fans and groupies. Jackson even shot a video. In the video, it shows a male paparazzi following Michael and spying on him. It also shows Michael glowing on every step he took. In the end, the male paparazzi follows Michael Jackson to a bed. As he gets into the bed, he disappears, and as soon as the paparazzi was about to get a photo, he is arrested for spying a woman in bed. Michael hoped to get the video submitted to MTV, but MTV barred it from its network. Reason behind this is because that the network felt like black music wasn't rock enough. Backlash ensued and people began to call out MTV for racial discrimination. But eventually, MTV got it on their network and it aired on heavy rotation. Billie Jean would go #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and as for the video, it received praise as one of the greatest music videos of all time. And just recently, the video surpassed 1 billion views on YouTube. Beat It will be the next single, and for its video, Michael wanted to shine a light on actual gang members. This will be the first video to include a mass choreography moment in the song. This video bode better with MTV, and it was also placed on heavy rotation, and like Billie Jean, it will also go #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Around the same time, Motown was putting together a 25th anniversary special called Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Producers wanted Jackson to reunite with his brothers, including Jermaine for the moment, but initially he refused. He ended up agreeing to show after getting a visit from Berry Gordy. He agreed to participate on the condition he gets a solo spot. This was the first time the brothers performed with Jermaine since his departure in 1975. After the Jacksons got done with their set, Michael performed Billie Jean, and what you got was a moment in history. Many people also speculated that this was the moment he became the king of pop. Remember when I said Billie Jean was one of the best videos of all time? Well, Michael was going to top that. Later on that year, he released his most iconic video of all time, Thriller. Directed by John Landis, this video took a horror movie vibe. In the video, Jackson and his leading lady, played by Ola Ray, are defied by zombies while heading home from a cinema. Jackson turned into a zombie and plays out a dance routine with a crowd of the undead. Thriller was a groundbreaking video setting the tone for future music videos. As for the album, it became the best-selling album of all time, selling over 70 million copies worldwide, going 34 times platinum in the US alone. Other singles he had also charting in the top 10 were Wanna Be Starting Something, PYT, Pretty Young Thing,
I want to love you, pretty young thing. You need some love.
and my personal favorite off the album, Human Nature.
Tell him that it's human nature. Why?
Back with the Jacksons, after their Motown 25 performances, opportunities for the group began to surface. First, Jermaine officially rejoined the group, then they inked a deal with Pepsi. The group shot 2 commercials for the soft drink. The first one was filmed at the Shrine Auditorium and an accident occurred. While in rehearsals, a pyrotechnic hit Michael in the head, leaving him with second-degree burns. To help treat the pain, doctors prescribed him with pain pills, and those demons would change his life forever. Also, he had another rhinoplasty around this time as well. The Jacksons sued Pepsi for the injury but settled out of court. A second commercial featured a young actor named Alfonso Ribeiro, who would later be known for his role as Carlton on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Jackson released their album Victory in the summer of 1984. In the album, it showcased each member's solo abilities. 3 singles were promoted, as those singles were State of Shock, which was a rehashing of the song Freddie and Mike did, with Mercury being replaced with Mick Jagger.
We're doing it.
Torture, a duet featuring Jermaine and Michael. And Body, which is a Marlon Jackson solo. But the videos for Torture and Body did not feature Michael nor Jermaine. Michael at the time had a too busy schedule to appear, and Jermaine just outright refused to be in both videos. On top of that, the tour was a disaster. Despite selling out stadiums, shady financial dealings led to conflict. All of these financial failings led Michael to do these concerts for free, as he donated his earnings to random charities. Also, Michael's ego was causing a split between the group. He would fly privately on a jet while his brothers would fly commercially. Michael stayed in separate hotels from the brothers. By the halfway point of the tour, the brothers rarely spoke to each other until it was showtime. Health also played a role in the tour. Jackie missed half of the tour due to a leg injury, and Michael was placed on medical care as a stress of dealing with this tour, and 2 shows had to be canceled due to Jermaine having the flu. At the end of the tour in Los Angeles Dodger Stadium, Michael announced to the crowd that he will be departing with the Jacksons, to the surprise of everyone, even his brothers.
Listen up. I'd like to say this is our last and final tour. And I think this is our farewell tour. Y'all been wonderful. It's been a long 20 years, and we love you all.
At tour's end, Marlon will also leave for a solo career. The Jacksons will release one more album before ending in 1990. In 1985, he will team up with Quincy Jones again and adding Lionel Richie to the mix to record a charity record called We Are the World. Other vocalists included was Stevie Wonder, Kenny Rogers, Tina Turner, among many, many others. The song motive was used to spread awareness on Africa's famine issues, with most of the proceeds donated to Africa. The song was a bestseller, winning a Grammy for Song of the Year, as well as Record of the Year, Best Pop Duo Group Performance, and Best Music Video. The song became the first song to go multi-platinum. In 2010, after the earthquake in Haiti, a remake of We Are the World was made. By this time, Michael's appearance was changing again, this time with his skin. His skin was growing more and more paler, and it was revealed later in his years that he suffered from vitiligo, a skin disease that caused pigmentation to fade, causing patches of white skin. Causes of this disease is still unknown to this day. Issues for this started around the time he was filming for Thriller. He started to apply black makeup on his skin to help cover up some of the spots. He was diagnosed with the disease in 1986, and rumors sparked with reporters saying he bleached his skin so he looked white. Therefore, he will often appear wearing long sleeve clothing, with few exceptions. According to his mother, she revealed that her son had cosmetic procedures done twice to avoid looking like a cow. Michael spent most of 1985 and 1986 laying low and keeping a low profile, which is a rarity for him. In August 31st, 1987, Michael released his first album in 5 years called Bad. The album featured themes of media bias,
So just leave me alone.
paranoia,
Baby, you're the very same one who said that.
romance,
I just can't stop loving you.
self-improvement, and world peace. At some point during the album, Michael released every track as a single, with Just Good Friends being the lone exception. The album featured a then record 5 #1 hits off that album. Those hits were the title track Bad, I Just Can't Stop Loving You, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, and Dirty Diana. Although not as successful as Thriller, going 8 times platinum is still a major accomplishment. This will be the final album to have involvement from Quincy Jones. There was many reasons why Jones wasn't brought back for Michael Jackson's Dangerous album, but I believe that with the music involving and Michael maturing, Quincy Jones has taken Mike as far as he could take him. Michael embarked on his first solo tour called the Bad Tour. The tour would enter Michael's name in the Guinness World Record as the highest grossing tour at the time by a solo artist, and he also set a record for the largest attended audience at Wembley Stadium. At tour's end, he mentioned that this will be his last tour. Yeah, Michael. In 1988, Michael Jackson released his first autobiography, Moonwalker, with an assist from Jackie Kennedy. Jackson discussed his childhood, the Jackson 5, and the abuse from his father. He attributed his changing facial appearances to 3 plastic surgeries, puberty, weight loss, a strict vegan diet, a change in hairstyle, and stage lighting. Basically almost everything I mentioned in the first 3 parts. Unsurprisingly, the book reached the top of the bestsellers list. Shortly after, he released a film called Moonwalker, which is basically a compilation of music videos from this era. The film also features Sean Lennon, who is the son of John Lennon and Yoko Ono. Michael also began to lay groundwork on his new home, the Neverland Ranch. His home will feature a Ferris wheel, a zoo, and a movie theater at the price of $17 million, which will be $38 million in 2022. At decade's end, President George H.W. Bush named Michael Jackson the Artist of the Decade. Michael didn't take as long as a break as he did with Thriller, so he jumped right into the studio to work on his 8th album. With Quincy Jones out of the picture, Michael needed a new producer. He saw how the New Jack Swing sound was taking over R&B, and Mike wanted a piece of that. So he hired Teddy Riley, who was known for his work with Guy and producing Bobby Brown's massive hit, My Prerogative, to produce his next project. Released in November 1991, it was headlined by the lead single Black or White. The video was directed by John Landis, who was the same guy who directed his evolutionary video Thriller. The video starts off with a young Macaulay Culkin blasting to loud music which gets his father's attention and orders him to stop. Culkin retaliates and plays his music so loud it blasts his father to Africa. In Africa, we're shown Michael dancing with African tribes and visuals. Towards the end of the video, we are shown several people of different races morphing. The scene included a young and aspiring model named Tyra Banks. After this, a panther leaves the studio and emerges as Michael Jackson. He is seen walking around the block with racially insensitive words, which were later removed from later versions, and The Simpsons closed the video. The video and song was another impactful as it speaked out against discrimination. The song also featured Guns N' Roses guitarist Slash, and the song went #1 again.
It don't matter if you're black or white.
The next video was Remember the Time, which was directed by John Singleton, who would later direct the groundbreaking film Boys in the Hood. The synopsis consists of a pharaoh, played by Eddie Murphy, and his queen, Iman, wanted to be entertained. Now I gotta pause the video for the sec, but I just want to say that I think it's funny how Michael made Iman an African queen, while his brother Jermaine made her a crook in his video Do What You Do. Magic Johnson and Tiny Debo Lister also appears in the video. The first two acts were sent to their executions. The third act, however, threw sand in front of the two, turning into Michael Jackson, and he does this whole singing and dancing thing. Michael then runs away and turns back into sand. The Dangerous album proved to be just as successful as Bad, going 8 times platinum. Later that year, in 1992, the Jacksons and American Dream miniseries was released on television, telling the journey of the Jackson family. Portraying Michael was a young Jason Weaver, who would later play Marcus on Smart Guy, appearing on the Lion King soundtrack on the song I Just Can't Wait to Be King, and star in movies like Drumline and ATL. Playing older Michael was Willie Draper, who would pass away 1 year later from leukemia. Michael only had a small part in this. All he had to do was approve of the actors selected in the series.
And an AD assistant director pulled me over and said, "Hey Jason, come to this trailer, somebody wants to meet you," and blase blase. And so I came over to this trailer, and it was just what I thought was like this older white guy kind of just sitting there. And then I looked, and when he started speaking, when I looked at his eyes, he was like, "Man, you're doing a great job. Doing a really good job, Jason." I was like, "Oh, Michael?" He's like, "Hey, how you doing? I'm sorry I had to come like this, but you know," I was like, "Dude, look."
Michael approved that his star was still high, but something lurking in the future was jeopardizing that. In 1992, Michael Jackson started the Heal the World Foundation. The purpose of the charity was to provide medicine to children to fight world hunger, homelessness, child exploitation, and abuse. Jackson stated that he wanted to improve the conditions for the children throughout the world. In early 1993, he got the opportunity to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show at the Rose Bowl. The halftime show gained more viewers than the game itself. At the time, the Super Bowl was seeing its ratings decline, so the NFL decided to book a big-name entertainer to perform the halftime. And since then, the halftime show became the utmost importance of the Super Bowl. Then that same year, he did a 90-minute interview with the greatest interviewer of all time, Oprah Winfrey. There, he talked about his childhood and how Joseph physically and emotionally abused him and his siblings. He talked about not having a normal childhood. He also addressed the tabloid rumors that involved him bleaching his skin, replacing his nose, slept in an oxygen chamber, and owning the bones of Joseph Merrick, aka the Elephant Man, located at his Neverland Ranch. It was the highest viewed interview at the time. Now, what I'm about to talk about next may be disturbing to some viewers, so you've been warned. Michael Jackson was accused of sex of a minor. Jackson obviously denied these claims, stating that the boy's father was just trying to extort him out of money. But things only got worse when his exiled sister LaToya accused him of being a But to make a long story short, because I really don't want to talk about this part of his life, Jackson settled out of court and no charges were pressed due to lack of evidence. Throughout the allegation process, he started to date Lisa Marie Presley, who is the daughter of Elvis and Priscilla. He credits her for emotional support. In May 1994, the two married in Las Vegas. Many tabloids criticized Jackson for using the marriage to deviate away from the allegations. The couple will make a surprise appearance on the 1994 MTV Video Music Awards.
And just think, nobody thought this would last.
In 1995, Michael Jackson released a double album called His Story, Past, Present, and Future Book 1. The first half is basically a compilation of all his greatest hits, and the second half is new material. The first single was a song that took shots at his 1993 allegations known as Scream, which features his little sister Janet. Janet revealed that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who produced the single, wanted the siblings to battle and compete, which neither party wanted. But the video for the song was insane. Janet also revealed that she hardly filmed any scenes with her brother. He allegedly blocked Janet from watching him do his scenes in the video. The Scream video is the most expensive video of all time, costing about $7 million.
We're such illusions, don't it make you wanna scream?
The next single was a ballad called You Are Not Alone. Produced by a guy who I'm only referring to as Robert, the song became the first single to debut at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It will also be his final number 1 single in his lifetime. The video also features his wife topless. The next two singles he got political. Earth's song discussed the dangers of environmental destruction, and here's a fun fact. The song was supposed to appear on the Dangerous album but failed to make the cut. And the other single was called They Don't Really Care About Us, which talks about injustices. Two videos were made, both directed by Spike Lee. The first video was filmed in Rio de Janeiro, and in the video, Jackson toured around the most impoverished parts of Rio. The second version was filmed in a prison and showed visuals of injustice. And in 2020, Spike Lee edited a third version in response to the Black Lives Matter movement that occurred that year. His story would go 8 times platinum. Meanwhile, his marriage to Lisa Marie Presley was ending. In 1996, she filed for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. After the divorce, Lisa Marie revealed that she tried to reconcile with Michael, but later realized that it would be best to move on with their lives. Around the same time, he reacquainted with a close friend named Debbie Rowe. While Jackson and Presley was separated, she got pregnant with Michael's kid because Lisa refused to carry any kids by Michael. But the first pregnancy ended in miscarriage, and the tabloids somehow missed this story. She got pregnant again later in 1996, and shortly after announcing, they got married in Sydney, Australia. On February 1997, Prince Michael Jackson Jr. was born. In 1998, a daughter named Paris Jackson was born. Debbie Rowe is described as a private person and did everything possible to avoid the limelight. In 1999, the couple divorced and Michael was granted full custody of their 2 children. Michael Jackson, in the meantime, started to work on his 10th and final album. The album will be one of the most expensive albums of all time, costing him over $30 million. However, the release of the album was delayed due to a label dispute over his masters. Before the release of that album, on September 7th and 10th, 2001, Jackson held 2 concerts in Madison Square Garden. Those concerts were to commemorate 30 years since Got to Be There, Michael's first solo album, was released. Maya, Usher, 98 Degrees, Whitney Houston, Liza Minnelli, Luther Vandross, Slash, NSYNC, Destiny's Child all perform at these concerts. The Jackson brothers also performed with Michael, and this will be the final performance they'll have with Michael. What's crazy about that concert is that the next day after the final concert, the city of New York will be changed forever. September 11th, 2001, 2 airplanes crashed into the Twin Towers, resulting in both buildings collapses. Meanwhile, another plane crashed at the Pentagon, and a 4th plane crashed in Pennsylvania. After the attacks, Michael gave a benefit concert at RFK Stadium. During that 30th anniversary concert, Michael debuted a new single called You Rock My World. In the video, he features his close friend Chris Tucker from Rush Hour. The video is a mixture of Smooth Criminal and Beat It, as Michael is following a young attractive woman through the neighborhood, but Michael and Chris Tucker causes trouble at the club and a fight breaks out. Eventually, the fight would lead the club being burned down. In October 2001, Invincible was finally released. Commercially, the album did okay, debuting at number 1 and eventually going double platinum. But critically, it was deemed a disappointing because they felt like it wasn't the best material for Michael Jackson. As a result, it was deemed Michael's weakest material. In February 2002, Michael's third child, a son named Prince Michael Jackson II, aka Blanket, was born by an unnamed surrogate. In April of that same year, he gave a concert at the Apollo Theater. The concert special will be called Michael Jackson Live at the Apollo, and this will end up being his final on-stage concert he'll ever give. But Jackson will end up getting into hot water. In November 2002, while in Berlin, Michael dangled his son Blanket from the 4th-story balcony. He received major backlash and eventually apologized, but it will only get worse for Jackson. In May 2003, Jackson did a documentary called Living with Michael Jackson, which was directed by Martin Bashir. There, he follows Michael for 8 months, documenting Michael's lifestyle in Neverland. There, he talked about how he would invite a few boys to his Neverland ranch to sleep over, but he admits that some share a bed with Michael, but none of it was sexual. Amid the documentary, Jackson made a surprise appearance at the BET Awards where he shared the stage with James Brown. Brown was the recipient of that year's Lifetime Achievement Award, and MJ donned the cape over his idol. While presenting Brown, he calls James Brown the biggest influence of his musical career. That moment was the highlight of that year's BET Awards, and to this day, the best moment of the show's history. In November 2003, Jackson was charged with 7 counts of child and 2 counts of intoxicating a minor. Michael denied all and pleaded not guilty. The trial began in 2005, and if convicted, he faces over 20 years in prison and his legacy will be tarnished. The trial was heavily covered by the media, almost as big as that OJ trial. Michael felt alone, but he got support from his family, including LaToya, who called him out as a so George Lopez, Jay Leno, and Chris Tucker took the stand to defend Michael. The verdict came on June 2005, and after 7 days of deliberating, the jury found Michael Jackson not guilty on all counts, citing lack of substantial evidence. After the trial, Michael admitted that the trial took a toll on his mental and physical health. He moved to Bahrain and became reclusive. He never returned to the Neverland Ranch even though he still owned it. He returned to the United States in 2006, settling in Las Vegas. He then allowed Access Hollywood to his staying quarters where he revealed that he was working on new music. In 2008, the year Michael Jackson turned 50, Jackson released a special edition version of Thriller called Thriller 25. The album featured an updated versions of songs like The Girl Is Mine and Wanna Be Starting Something. In 2009, Jackson announced a series of comeback concerts at the O2 Arena. Many rumors about his financial and health issues speculated as the reasons of him doing these concerts. Originally, he planned on doing a world tour, but when the City of London made him an offer he couldn't refuse, he settled with the concert series. He would call it This Is It because he claimed he'll no longer tour after the series ended.
These will be my final show performances in London. This will be it. This is it. And when I say this is it, it really means this is it. This is it.
Jackson relocated to Los Angeles to prepare for the concerts using Staples Center, now known as Crypto.com Arena, to have his rehearsals. Kenny Ortega, who was coming off his success with High School Musical, directed and supervised most of his rehearsals. For once, Jackson was excited and anxious about his next chapter. But he would never perform a single concert because by the end of 2009, Michael Jackson would be dead. June 24th, 2009. Michael Jackson continues his rehearsals for his This Is It concert series at the Staples Center. Michael jokes about having laryngitis, but this does not affect his rehearsal. He rehearsed all the way to about midnight, and once rehearsals ends, he heads back to his rented mansion. And there's one thing I failed to mention, is that Michael struggled with insomnia and began to be dependent on propofol. 2 nights prior, his doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, decreases his doses of propofol to try and giving him new drugs to help him sleep. June 25th, 2009. 1:30 a.m., Jackson is ready to go to sleep, so Dr. Murray gave him a Valium pill. 2 a.m., Jackson is still awake, so Murray injects 2 milligrams of Ativan through IV. Between the hours of 3 a.m. through 7 a.m., Murray alternates between Versed and Ativan through IV, but neither drug could put Michael to sleep, so Murray checked Jackson's pulse and oxygen, which were normal. Growing impatient, Jackson urges Murray to give him the 25 milligrams of propofol, which he finally obliged. Jackson finally falls asleep. Now what happens next is disputed. Many reports said that Murray went to the bathroom, while other reports said that he was taking a cell phone call. At 10:52 a.m., Murray returns to Jackson's bedroom and discovers that the pop star isn't breathing. He quickly injects 0.2 milligrams of Nxate, which is a drug to counteract the effects of sedative drugs. He also does CPR on the bed, and I may not know much about CPR, but you're supposed to put the patient on a flat surface. 11:18 a.m., Murray continues to make phone calls on his personal cell, but it's not until 12:22 p.m. when 911 is called by Michael's security. So from the time Murray discovered Jackson not breathing till the time the security called him 911, 82 minutes was wasted. 5 minutes later, the paramedics arrive. They spend 42 minutes at Jackson's house performing proper CPR. Unable to wake him, he is transported to UCLA Medical Center. At 1:14 p.m., he arrives at the hospital. There, it is declared that he went under full cardiac arrest, and they continue their efforts to resuscitate Michael Jackson. These attempts failed, and at 2:46 p.m., Michael Joseph Jackson, the king of pop, was pronounced dead at the age of 50.
My brother, the legendary king of pop, Michael Jackson, passed away on Thursday, June 25th, 2009 at 2:26 p.m. It is believed he suffered cardiac arrest in his home. However, the cause of his death is unknown until results of the autopsy are known. His personal physician, who was with him at the time, attempted to resuscitate my brother. And as did the paramedics who transported him to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center. Upon arriving at the hospital at approximately 1:14 p.m., a team of doctors, including emergency physicians and cardiologists, attempted to resuscitate him for a period of more than 1 hour, and they were unsuccessful.
Unpredictably, many networks like MTV, BET, VH1, CNN, and everywhere else halted their regularly scheduled programs to report Michael Jackson's death. News coverage was so wild it temporarily broke the internet. One network in particular, BET, took the grief the hardest. For one, they had a BET Awards show that Sunday, and now they were faced with a dilemma: how to pay tribute to Michael Jackson on short notice, because they were going to be the first major award show to pay tribute to Michael. Now, I've already discussed this on my BET Awards documentary, and I advise you check it out. Marathons on his videos, movies, concerts of him was re-aired regularly. On July 7th, Michael Jackson had his public memorial service at Staples Center, where he held his This Is It rehearsals. Every major network aired the memorial. His casket was not supposed to be in attendance, but at the last minute was able to appear. Mariah Carey, Usher, Jennifer Hudson, Queen Latifah, Lionel Richie, Berry Gordy, Stevie Wonder, Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace, Magic Johnson, among many others participated in the service. Towards the end of the service, his daughter Paris and brother Marlon emotionally spoke, with Marlon telling Michael to give Brandon a hug for him.
Well, I thank you, Michael, for all the smiles that you've placed in many people's hearts. And I thank you for everything that you've done for others across this globe in the Lord's name. And I have one request, Michael, one request. I would like for you to give our brother, my twin brother, Brandon, a hug for me. I love you, Michael, and I'll miss you.
His memorial service was the highest rated service since the service of Ronald Reagan in 2004. Jackson was giving another private service on September 3rd for the family. Dr. Conrad Murray was found liable in Jackson's death and was charged with involuntary manslaughter in 2011. He was convicted and sentenced to the maximum 4 years in prison, and his medical license was revoked in Texas, while in California and Nevada suspended his license. In 2013, he was paroled. Today, as of 2016, he only consults with patients with no fee. Later in 2009, Kenny Ortega produced a documentary called Michael Jackson's This Is It. The documentary documents Michael Jackson's rehearsals leading up to his concert series. The film was a box office smash, grossing over $261 million. Michael has proven to be a martyr. He released 2 posthumous albums, Michael in 2010 and Escape in 2014, with the latter featuring a single called Love Never Felt So Good with Justin Timberlake, and it peaked at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. At the 2014 Billboard Music Awards, a hologram of Michael Jackson performed Slave to the Rhythm. Between the years 2010 and 2019, the Vanguard Award from the VMAs was renamed to the Michael Jackson Vanguard Award. And in his honor, every June 25th, the world observes World Vitiligo Day, a day to spread awareness and embrace the beauty for those who struggle with their skin. To this day, Michael Jackson is referred to as one of the biggest entertainers of all time. When a celebrity asks who are your biggest influences, Jackson's name often comes up. Jackson is an artist who can relate to any genre. He changed the game when it came to music videos too. And to close, if it wasn't for Michael Jackson, many of these musicians and groups wouldn't exist. And on that note, that concludes the portrait of Michael Jackson. Tell me what y'all think in the comments below. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.